Hello everybody and welcome to today's warm and sunny Q&A. Dreadful at the tyre, I apologise, but it's warm out here. It's lovely, it's very nice, enjoying the sunshine. Before we go on, Fuel Watch, and I've actually got this week's prices because I'm doing this one on Friday night, so I actually got back in time to get some of the emails. So for the coming week, this is the week that will be starting on like the 1st of June. I have got Motia at 132.44. I've got Express Fuels at 132.7 and Watson's at 132.73. I know Ian's already pinged me. He's got a slightly cheaper Motia than me, but this week should be looking for around about the 132 mark, guys. If you're getting much lower than that, winner chicken dinner. If you're paying more than that, straight on the trombone and go, why are you charging me too much money? Or use the other card. Last week, just to give you an idea, I mean the prices have dropped by about 7 pence. Last week I had Watson's at 139.21, Express Fuels at 130. Oh, Express Fuels were an absolute winner last week. They're my friends. Remember, if you get a chance, give them a ring. Express Fuels, they're good. Last week, everybody else was. I had Watson's 139.21, Motia 139.59, UK Fuels 142.76, Express Fuels 136. When they're cheap, they are cheap. They were 3p cheaper, so you might want to give them guys a bell. White Van Man is the comparison. Had UK Fuels 139.12, Silvery Fuels 139.89, and Tate Fuels at 139. So yeah, 139 was last week's price. This week's price should be 132. Ian had 138. So. And Leachy says, on the subject of our friends over at UK Fuels, he says, I've almost given up with UK Fuels. A few weeks ago, I had a long call with them telling me how they really want my business and that they give me the best prices. I got a call on Friday with a good price. It's now Monday the 26th, it's gone up to 143. Certain companies they work on a policy of just cranking it up and waiting to see if you pay it. If you carry on paying it, they'll carry on cranking it up. You need to have more than one card. You need to be checking the emails every week. You need to be on top of it. So, because you want to keep your cost minimum, because this week's video is the Courier game still worth going into? Well, I'm doing it. Admittedly, I can't afford a shirt, but there you go. So, Paul Treggett says, I agree with you that more stuff is getting delivered. Well, it is. Yeah, well, I think so. Rather than you take the truck to the store, and then we'd all drive to the store to get it. Now they take the truck to the RDC, and lots of little vans move it around, so we don't have to go to the store. Less congestion on the road, less parking, and at the same time, more jobs for the couriers. He says, I'm a bit older now, so I don't need to make more money every week. If I was in my, say, 20s or 30s with a family, mortgage, etc., maybe not such a good idea. It's a lifestyle choice. Money can be okay some months, but not every month. He said, and prices are low. Long wheelbase should be at least 170 a mile. This is something, in fairness, when people used to ring me up sometimes, and I'll talk to anybody, I don't mind, and they would say, should I do it? And I'd always say, okay, what's your position? Are you young? Have you got a few quid behind you? You live at home? You got a family behind you? Or are you have you got a family that you have to support? Have you got a mortgage? Have you got a gas bill? Have you got a council tax bill? Have you got commitments to meet every week? Because you don't always want to stress it is right. I mean, if you've got the sense you can go out there, you can bang away at it, get a few quid behind you and put it to one side, lovely. What happens on day 2 or day 3 when the engine goes or the gearbox goes? You go, oh God, what am I going to do? It all depends on you. My mate Ken is he's just flicked off from an Ocado, and he's debating on whether to jump into a truck. And I said I'd help him if he jumps into a truck, But it's that thing. He said I actually like working with someone. He'd been a market trader all his life. He said I like going to work, and like Friday I just turn off. You hand your keys in, that's it. The gearbox goes, the engine, the red light comes on, stop. You pull over, you go, I've got a red light. Don't have to think about it. That is one big part of it. My mate Lee says, it can definitely work. Now, he's been doing small van for a little while, so he's got the hang of it. He knows what he's doing. It can definitely work, but it doesn't happen overnight, as with all new businesses. You could get lucky and be at the right place at the right time where someone will give you regular daily work. Is the CX oversubscribed? Some say it is, but I think it all depends on where you live. When I switch on the app in the morning and see who's nearby, I'll get 3 or 4 people in my hometown. That may help push the price up if there's less competition. It would be very difficult if I lived in a big town or a city where there could be hundreds of drivers all looking for a job which could drive the prices down. Although I've always said I would rather be in a place where there are like 10 drivers and 2 jobs than a place where there is 1 driver and no jobs. Because if there's no job, you can't get a job. If there's 10 drivers and 2 jobs, you might have a 1 in 5 chance of getting it. If you can have a little crack on with them, it might be even less. You never know. He said, I'm on my 3rd year now and things are moving in the right direction. As in, I can usually find work most of the day. I often meet drivers at collection points, all saying that the rates are really low. These all drive long wheelbase or Luton vans. It must be difficult if you need to play by the rules. Don't co-load to make a good living, especially when you first start. The overheads are much higher, and that's just the fuel. Realistically, they should be charging a minimum of $1.50 a mile, if not more. Should you blame the shippers or the CX for a low rate, or is it just market forces? It's the problem, isn't it? We've gone on about the conveyor belt of fools before. We've gone on about there should be a price. There does seem to be an industry standard. It hasn't gone up much, but in my game, 18-ton truck, £3 a mile. 7.5-ton truck, $2.50 a mile. You can get more sometimes if you go to difficult areas, difficult times, difficult places. Sometimes you do it for a little bit less. I phoned the guy a day. Actually, he gave me a decent price anyway. I had to drive off to Birmingham this morning. A job came out of sort of like Nuneaton way, going back to Leighton Buzzard. I said, you got a job going back to Leighton Buzzard? He says, yeah. I said, I live in Leighton Buzzard. Take me home. He said, all right. But don't get me wrong, the price was, I give him the right price. So I just got, talk to people. Human. Talk to people. Human. This week's video is about Insurance Revolution. Human. I like the human side of things. This AI thing scares me. Asimov was wrong. It's frightening. Be afraid. Be very afraid. Anyhow, Blue M says, there are 3 types of people in the world. Those that make things happen, those that watch things happen, and those that wonder, what happened? It's like the Gary Larson cartoon. The glass is half full. The glass is half empty. The glass is half full. No, it's half empty. No, it's half full. No, it's half empty. And I ordered a cheeseburger. Probably is funny when you see the cartoon. My other favourite one is always there are 10 types of people in this world. Those who understand binary and those who don't. The only thing is that only actually works if it's written down. Otherwise it just doesn't work. And finally from Shane Hardy, he said, it's like everything. There are winners and losers, there are ups and downs. And that's the bottom line. Do it, don't do it. Get involved, hold your nose and jump. If it doesn't work, go and do something else. At least you'll have a good story at the end of it. So, anyhow, that's it on the Courier train. Now, continue. The load pass continued. So we done the thing on the load pass. Is it going to work? Is it going to work? Is it going to make a difference? This thing where they go, the CX will send the shipper your photo and go, this is the man coming to pick it up. Don't give it to anyone else. And then they'll send you it so you can verify on your face. And then you turn up and you got your fork truck driver, I got a load pass, and he just goes, yeah, pallets are over there, mate. Because the warehouse does not talk to the office. And it probably never will. Anyway, so what do you guys think? Kane Pearson says, he said, I've noticed his low pass. He's done a few jobs that require it. I think it's a good idea as he gets rid of people milking the system. I think in theory it gets rid of people milking the system. I think at the moment in practice it makes no difference whatsoever. But I understand that it's a journey of a million miles and you don't get anywhere without getting involved. So they're getting involved, they're trying to work it out. The Courier Journal says, I can't see this working. As a shipper, can you imagine taking the risk of sending a courier and then someone else turning up? It's kind of a problem, isn't it, really? That's kind of the thing they're trying to eliminate, in the fact that there are people at the moment that are taking the jobs and then sending their cousin, their uncle, their brother, their mates. I was one of their mates. It happened to me back in the day. I didn't even know I was doing anything wrong, but it happened. And then if I turn up and you show your load pass, you don't look anything like £2 Tony. What are you doing here? By the way, there's your 4 pallets. Come on. We'll see. We'll see how it pans out. He says, Yeah, how would a shipper look in this instance? It's a worry. Mr. Guy Dodd says, he says, the driver arrives on site, no info, no photo forwarded, waste of time. He says, can you imagine Uber, the brothers, the sister, the auntie, who's off sick today, so Mr. So-and-so is here instead? And it's a thing, you go, hey, your photo on your low pass doesn't look like the one that you sent through. No, he's been put on another job. Oh, yeah, no, sorry, he called in sick this morning. His van's broken down, so they've diverted me instead. There's your 4 pallets. You've got a mountain, if you're listening to these videos, CX, and I don't know if you are, you've got a mountain to climb here with this low pass, because it's just not that straightforward. How it pans out in the end, I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. This week's Wise Guys, Mr. Dr. Stelio says, Pete, right, this is to do with can you touch your phone when you're driving. Pete, you're wrong, or at least largely erroneous. Yes, everything on the channel is wrong, or at least largely erroneous. This is true. Well done for spotting that. On the phone law, you can do certain functions on your mobile phone whilst driving if it's mounted to your vehicle. You can use or adjust the sat nav and accept calls on a hands-free without holding the phone. Also, voice commands. Voice commands are brilliant. This Gemini thing, you know, sort of like you go, Gemini, I can't find Robert's insurer. I can't find Robert's hauliers. Where are they? Show me on Google Maps, will you? Yeah, it's great, yeah. He said, I've had this debate with many people, and it's simply not true that you cannot touch your phone while driving. You can use your phone if it's securely mounted to do things highlighted above. I don't know. I was told that you can't light the screen up. So but then having said that, if your phone's plugged in and the screen's on all the time, how does that work? How does it work if you drive a Tesla where the central panel, you actually have to swipe up and down the central panel to make it go backwards and forwards? I know my mate Corners has got one. You're touching the screen while driving. I can't not touch the screen while driving. I have to touch it to put it in reverse. So how does that work? Changing the radio. I use my phone as a DAB radio, so it goes to, like, I've got one in Bluetooth things, and then it's mounted on the dashboard. And if I decide it's like getting off at 9:30, I've decided I'm going to go off 6 Music and stop listening to Nick Grimshaw. I'm going on to Vernon Kay, so I go like that and change the channel. Is that illegal? Because I'm touching my phone while driving. But if I did it on the if they had one built into the dashboard, which I haven't because my dad's so old, is that legal? It's all a bit, and I think part of the problem is it depends on the officer you're going to get. Technically speaking, it's not illegal to drive in flip-flops. You can drive in flip-flops, you can drive in flippers, you can drive in stilts, providing you can actually control the vehicle. If you have an accident and you're in stilts and they can prove the fact the reason you had an accident you're in stilts, you go to prison. But if you can prove that you're a stilt driver, brilliant. Problem is, what happens when you get a policeman and he says you can't drive in flip-flops? Not stilts, that's stupid. You can't drive in flip-flops. No, legally you can. No, you can't. Here's your ticket. What are you going to do? You got it. You can go to court and appeal it, but you've still got to go to court and appeal it. You know, it's sort of best not to get involved in the first place, I find, if you can avoid it. You know, use the hands-free, use the Gemini. Don't touch it. Paul Dreadit says, best time for it. He's right. Best way, just don't touch your phone while driving. There you go. Is it always that easy? Don't know. White Van Man says, oh, this is all right. No, we've gone on to just going out. Right, so that's on that one. Now we're going to go on the Wise Guys. Now, I've just removed the section heading for some reason. White Van Man says, now this is to do with Timacom. Someone said, what do I think about Timacom? I've never used Timacom. I said, if anyone out there has, let me know. I'm on the Haulage Exchange, that's it. He said, White Van Man said, I've inquired with Timacom and they wouldn't sign me up because I didn't have an operator's license, even though at the time I was driving a 2.5-ton van that didn't require an operator's license. Well, I've got to say from the outset, that doesn't exactly fill me with confidence, does it really? If they can't actually work out what motors need operators and what ones don't. But if anyone's used Timacom, let me know. And King Am says, I'm going to put myself in a Wise Guys here. Any place to buy a Luton with a tail? Where's the best place to buy a Luton with a tail lift? I used to buy mine from ex-hire places because the ex-hire vans normally come with a tail lift. They're box and they've normally done relatively low miles. They might have had different drivers because they're normally hired by people that do small removals at weekends or move their kids to university. In which case you get one of them, they're relatively well looked after. They haven't done particularly high miles. If it's a Courier van, it would have had the life knocked out of it. And then spend the money getting one side converted with a curtain. That way you've got a rigid side in case you have to strap anything to it, and you've got the curtain side, and then get some anchor points to put on the floor. It won't be cheap. Strengthening the box nut, you might be looking at $1.5 to $2 grand, but once you get that done, you've got the best of every world. You've got a curtain side, you've got a tail lift, you've got a Luton. You can do Luton jobs, long wheelbase jobs, extra long wheelbase jobs, curtain side jobs, tail lift jobs. World's your oyster. It's the best Courier van there is, in my opinion, which, as we stated earlier on, is wrong, or at least largely erroneous. But at the end of the day, you do you. This is just, I'm just pointing out there, you do you. We got a couple of miscellaneous this week as well. Niall Wilson says, oh yeah, get a portable pressure washer and blast the radiator out. No, that's exactly what we did. Saturday morning, me and Mark went up the yard, changed the radiator, and then we had to blast he spent about half an hour with the jet washer blasting out the radiator. Sorry, changed the thermostat, blast out the radiator, and he says you should see the muck that come out of that. And so the problem is, if you go on site, if I'm going to like building sites and stuff like that, all the dust and the mud and all that, and all the dead flies, it all builds up on the radiator, and then the radiator can't get the heat away because it's got this stuff in the way. Wash it all away and the radiator can work properly. I've run all week this week, and other than Tuesday afternoon last thing, we got a little bit warm, but admittedly it was coming up on 35 degrees then. It should have been fine, so we should be okay. Question, I was talking to Lewis, my mate Lewis, he's Ian's boy. And we were talking about it because he had his bonnet open. So I always open my bonnet when I get back to the yard just to cool it down quicker. He always have. And I told him about the heat thing. He says, yeah. He said, well, you're going about this, but they run trucks in Spain, in Italy, 35, in Egypt, 35, 40 degrees. They drive DAFs there. They've got DAFs and Scanias and Volvos and Mercs there. So how come they work there but they don't work here? There's one for the wise guys. Do trucks that exist in foreign countries have better cooling systems? I bet they don't. So what's different? Maybe it's just my truck. Maybe they don't drive it on site so much. Oh, no, in fairness, I did speak to Nick as well, my mate Nick, the urban trucker, and he said, yes, Daniels and Volvos have this problem a lot. This is what I used to blow. I used to blow mine out with, you get the air gun, the one that you can actually attach to the compressor, which can also pumps up your tyres and cleans out your cab if you like. Well, not cleans out your cab, that'd be a bit blasty. But I've gone off on one, don't worry, I'll get back in a minute. But yeah, he said, yeah, that's a common thing. And also, we all know the trick now, which is just turn the fan up to full, turn all the vents open, turn the heating up to full, and it just pulls all the heat out of the engine cavity, and then wind the windows down. Otherwise, you will pass out from heat exhaustion. And the final one this week, we've got Mark Warren, who's got an old van, and he said, I have a Mark 1 Sprinter with just 80,000 miles on it. Sounds like Ken's old mama. Recently drove from London to Gloucester and then from there to Belgium and back, and was faultless. I spent a whole lot on various moving parts, everything brake related, rusty U-bolt, control arms, shocks, exhaust, but I feel it's worth it. Chain driven, mint injectors, no DPF. There's a lot, the DPF thing, it's a killer. I always say if I was in a pop band, I ever had to release an album, I would call it A Cat Killed My Shirley, because it did. That's it. If you really want to know more about that, I'll tell you another day. We're nearly done today. No EG and no add poo malarkey. I go like add poo. Don't add poo. It's more like add wee because it's got your wet. No, it hasn't. Don't try that. If you do that, you'll do your engine. Just put the proper stuff in. And I know it's not you, Liz, but I don't care because I don't. It's all a big scam. And don't even get it started on the mission zone. Don't get me started on that. But so that's this week's Q&A. Look at that lovely sunshine. Maybe you'll get the chance to have a couple of beers. Maybe have a barbecue. Put your feet up. He's having a wonderful time. Before we go back to it on Monday. Taking care. Taking money.